to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. I'm Andrew Cavanaugh. I want to say thank you for coming back to the channel, and I really appreciate the pretty big jump in subscribers we've had in the last week or so. It's been pretty great, so thank you very much for subscribing to the channel if you have. Today I'm going to bring you my review of Spider-Man Homecoming, the newest Spider-Man film, this time a conjunctive effort between Sony and Marvel Studios. Sony Columbia Pictures is owned by Sony, but it's a Sony production. But it's a joint thing between Sony and Marvel. And I gotta say, I am so glad this finally happened. The last Spider-Man movie was a total clusterfuck. And it's really great to see Spider-Man done right. This is hands down one of the better comic book movies I've seen as of late. I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I thought that was a wonderful film. Sadly, I did not get a chance to review it, but I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a great film. But I gotta tell you, this one, just for whatever reason, this one hit a little bit closer to home for me. I grew up with the Spider-Man comics. He was basically always my favorite superhero besides Batman when I was growing up. Spider-Man was just very relatable. Probably the most relatable comic book superhero ever. So I was very happy to see Spider-Man kind of finally go back to Marvel and get done the right way. I loved Spider-Man 1 and 2 with Tobey Maguire when those came out. Those are great movies. They do have their flaws. Spider-Man 3 is a disaster, but the first two movies were really well done. I think the first one is still the best version of the origin story. Amazing Spider-Man was not a bad film. It just was repeating the same thing we saw before with slightly different characters. Really nothing too groundbreaking about that film. I did enjoy bits and pieces of it, but as a whole, it was just retreading the same territory. And Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm not even going to talk about. That's just a disaster of a film. Not even going to go into it. But the one thing I do have to say about this movie is that this is hands down the best Spider-Man movie ever made. I love the fact that they did not feel the need to do another origin story. We got the origin story twice already. We didn't need it. And I think that's a brilliant move. The character of Spider-Man in this movie is just the best version that we've seen so far. Tom Holland as Spider-Man completely embodies this character. And just his, like, one or two scenes from Civil War, it was like a breath of fresh air seeing this kid as Spider-Man. He fits the part perfectly. He is just about the right age. I mean, you can really buy him as a high school student, whereas Tobey Maguire was like 3 times too old to play Spider-Man at the time he started playing him. And then as the films went on, it kind of became ridiculous to see him as Spider-Man. He's a high school kid, and there's no way you can get a 30-year-old guy to play a high school kid. It just never worked. But I did enjoy his performance as Peter Parker. Tom Holland, though, is far and away the best. He fits the part well. His mannerisms as Peter Parker are basically pitch perfect throughout the entire film. You can really see in his eyes through most of the film that he loves being Spider-Man, but he also doesn't like being Spider-Man. I think that's the best part of the character, is that he has to be Spider-Man, but he also just wants to be a normal kid, but because of his superpowers, he feels the need to do greater things. And I think that's the most wonderful part of Spider-Man's character arc, and you really get that in this movie. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything in this review, so don't be afraid of spoilers. I'm just going to talk about the bare essentials of the film. Take my word for it, the story in this film is very well done, but part of the entertainment of this film is finding out what the story is. So I am not going to go into that. All I'm going to tell you is that it's very well done, and Michael Keaton steals this fucking movie. he runs away with this movie. Michael Keaton's performance, I love Michael Keaton, so I'm a little biased. He, to me, will always be Batman. He was the first Batman that I saw when I was growing up. It is just an amazing, amazing thing to see Michael Keaton back in the superhero world, and he steals this movie. He is just a tour de force in this thing, and hands down, I mean, I'm not trying to blow this out of proportions, Michael Keaton as Vulture in this movie is the best Marvel villain we've ever had. There is no one quite like Michael Keaton in this movie. His performance is this multi-layered thing. His performance is just not this maniacal, nuts character like a lot of these other Marvel superhero movies where the character is just completely unreal. This guy is a regular person like you and me, and you really understand why he's doing what he's doing in this film. It's a brilliant portrayal, just like Tom and everybody else. Marissa Tomei as well as Aunt May. I love the slightly younger, as Tony Stark says, as he said in Civil War, you're strangely attractive aunt or something he says in that movie. It was just a great line. I love that strangely attractive aunt line. That's like such a great line. But she does a really good job in this as well, and she is also believable as Aunt May. I think also the film has a much lighter tone. The feel of the film is much lighter than all of the other Spider-Mans that have come before it. The movie does not dwell in a dark territory. It is a very, very great use of comedy in this film. The use of comedy in this movie is very much, it's well spread out, but I spent most of this movie laughing, and it's not a bad thing. I go to the movies to have a good time every now and then. I mean, there are movies that I go to see that, you know, are complete downers, but, like, I don't go to a Spider-Man movie to be, like, you know, depressed. I'm going to a Spider-Man movie to have a good time. And I think the producers of the film know that, so they made this movie much lighter. And I think it was a great move, honestly. You could only have so many dark superhero movies. This one was very well done, and I really enjoyed the way they handled the tone of it. It really works for the material that's given in this film. I think also this movie also does capture the whole feel of being in high school very, very well. The idea that Peter Parker is a high school student. He's not, I don't think they mention what grade he's in the movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's not graduating. He may be a junior or like a sophomore or something in high school, but he is definitely a high school student. And the movie focuses a lot on the fact that, you know, he's sometimes will skip out on school to be Spider-Man, and he'll do things that he really shouldn't be doing if he wants to, you know, graduate high school. And I think that's also another nice thing that they bring up in this movie that they really didn't deal with in other Spider-Man movies, which is kind of surprising. But I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that aspect. There's only really one nitpick I can make about this movie, and this isn't really a spoiler, but maybe I missed it. I don't know, but Spider-Man doesn't really have a spidey sense in this movie. His heightened awareness is just not there in this film. And I think that's something that I don't know if they just didn't focus on, or they wanted to do something different and just not have him have a spidey sense. But I didn't see the fact that he had like a heightened awareness like he does in the comic books and in all the other Spider-Man movies. I guess they wanted to do something different with this one. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just thought that it was kind of a strange thing to see a Spider-Man movie where people sneak up on him. Again, not giving anything away in the movie, but there are quite a few moments where he gets surprised by something, and Spider-Man just wouldn't be surprised by stuff. I guess it's creative license. I mean, Marvel can do whatever the hell they want. The movie is still absolutely outstanding. Everything about it was basically dead on. I love this movie. But seeing Spider-Man being snuck up on is kind of hilarious. I just never would have thought to see that in a Spider-Man movie. Maybe because Spidey is still young in this film, that he doesn't really have that yet. He hasn't really toned that yet. So he's still working on that. That may be something. Again, I don't know. Didn't really look into that. But I do have to say, besides that one little nitpick, I absolutely love this movie. There is a gigantic plot twist in the second half of this movie that led to audible gasps in the audience, and I was floored by it. So, I mean, this movie really subverted all my expectations. I love this film. I got everything I wanted from a Spider-Man film and more. So if you're a fan of these movies, please go see Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. This is the best Spider-Man movie we've ever gotten. It is damn near flawless, and I loved every minute of it. Oh, and by the way, make sure to stay until after the credits. There's some funny stuff there. My name is Andrew Cavanaugh. Thank you for coming back to Cavanaugh's Corner. If you enjoyed this review and you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. If you liked the video, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Take it easy.